Hello, welcome to Have Your Say. I'm Ann Minicozzi of the Community Breakfast of the Mainline Undoing Racism Day, and I'm here with our co-host,
Diana Robertson, president of the Mainline branch, NAACP.
And today we have with us two guests, Reverend Carolyn Cavaness, who is the pastor of the Bethel AME Church in Ardmore, and also Reverend Virginia Pollard, who is from Zion Baptist Church in Ardmore. And today we're talking about food security and food insecurity.
Okay, so it's great to have you with us today on our program. And particularly this time of year, we know that there are issues of food insecurity in particular all year round, but particularly this time of year, you hear more of a focus on especially during Thanksgiving, between now and up through the Christmas holidays or through the end of the year. I saw something with Phil Abundance recently, and one of the largest receivership of and givers of food. And so, but on the main line, sometimes people don't think that there's a problem with food insecurity on the main line, that it's only in Philadelphia and the metropolitan area. So since we know that both churches have been dealing with the issue of food insecurity, I want to start with you, Virginia, as to how Zion has been addressing some of those issues.
Do you mean just right now at this time of the year or in general?
No, just in general. Just in
Okay.
general, how as a church.
Well, one of the things that Zion has been doing is during the summertime in particular, we have a program called Box Lunch in a Book, and it focuses on children that have in the school system during the year free and reduced lunches. It's not limited to those families, but it really focuses on those families so that during the summer they can still maintain a good, healthy lunch as they go through our program. We have been successful. This year was our 4th year. Okay. And for the 4 years that we've been doing the program, we've given out over 6,500 lunches during that time. And so we're very happy about that number. And that is just a drop in the bucket to the needs that are in our community. But we're very pleased about doing that. And of course, during Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter, we give out baskets to those seniors and those families that have been identified as in need of food during that time.
And you were saying before that there are several churches that are involved.
Yes.
With Zion Baptist?
With Box Lunch in a Book, there is, of course, Zion Baptist Church of Ardmore. There is Saints Memorial Baptist Church in Bryn Mawr and Memorial Church of God in Christ located in Haverford.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we know, Reverend Cavaness, that I know that this was the first year for the community garden. Mm-hmm. And so why don't you talk about that and other things that...
So I'm from Newark, New Jersey, so very densely brick city. And I think also probably being an urban studies major in college, whenever you have a vacant lot, you do something with it. You put something on it. And also from the school of thought that if you have something and it's not helping someone else, it's a sin. Mm-hmm. It's waste. And so about 2 years ago, group of the congregation, we thought about how could we take that lot and transform it to a community garden without knowing the startling statistic that about 11% of Lower Merion School District, which is about 1,000 children, are on free and reduced lunch, which means there is certainly a food shortage, food deficit, and then coupled with unilaterally, globally, persons just not having access to good food, and how we all can use more vegetables, more fruits, more things from the earth. So we teamed up with the Triskeli's Foundation, which actually just renamed themselves Trellis for the Future, And they were our garden architect, I call them. And we built 9 raised beds, and are happy that from the period of March 31st, and we just cut off the water supply on November 17th, we harvested close to 1,300 pounds.
That's amazing.
Of produce for our first year. And it was certainly a community effort. Zion helped us, the Cub Scouts, Harvard College students, just neighbors. Hey, can you come help? Can we help? People who had no gardening experience. So certainly was a community builder, and also became the exercise of, well, what do I do with this eggplant? And so we we invited Adrian Seltzer actually last week, and so to our congregation, and she talked about like how to skin the eggplant, how to get the bitterness out. So that'll probably be the next, when we go into year 2, how can we add the cooking component, or how do you make fried green tomatoes? So because we made kale, broccoli, white potatoes, purple potatoes, cucumbers, all sorts of tomatoes. We had a lot of great looking heirlooms, eggplant, green peppers, banana peppers, and that was just out of 9 raised beds, and we still have half of the lot is still vacant. So there is an idea of even expanding. So that's a little bit about, and it's also cool to say that many of our congregations have community gardens on location themselves. So Mainline Reform, Ardmore United Methodist, Zion, you have like a little strip in the back. So even cataloging how we're all doing it in our different ways. St. Paul's and off of Athens, Holy Trinity in Narberth, St. Luke does a little bit of community garden. So
Great.
And I just wanted to say, our seniors really loved when they were harvesting, because they would bring vegetables over, and the seniors really look forward to having fresh vegetables so that they can do things with. So.
Sure. And we committed that, in fact, 70% of what we harvested, we spread out to all the different food pantries here in the immediate area. Different churches or neighbors are saying, I like how that tomato looks.
Right.
Or I remember one Sunday after church, after preaching, I said, well, we're going to go outside and pick collard greens. And they're like, really, Reverend? And so it was cool exercise in how we picked them, put them in the water down. So it's like, so it's been a learning experience on many different levels.
Okay. So now one of my concerns is throughout the years, we've been talking about this, but interestingly enough, though, throughout the years, the need has increased. The need keeps increasing. And so I start to ask myself, why? Because I know with different things that we do, and obviously with any problem that you deal with the immediate, but then I'm always looking for the why and what is the real root problem. How can we address the root problem, but understanding what is the root problem, and something like that is not just one piece, it's not just one thing. And so we know from the perspective of the church that in general deals with a lot of social justice issues. How do you believe as the church that we can do more, we can address, really look at and try to identify what is the root of the problem, so that we can begin to work in a way that helps to diminish that need?
Well, from my perspective, out here in Lower Merion, we're blessed and we're cursed. Blessed in that we have so many wonderful things that are available to our people. But the cursing comes in with, to live in Lower Merion, it's a lot.
Right.
And so families have to make a choice. Am I going to pay my rent? Or am I going to buy groceries? Or what kind of groceries am I going to buy to be able to sustain my family? And so one of the things that we have tried to do is my husband was on a committee years ago and still is part of that committee, but it's not as active as it used to be. Was Ardmore affordable housing, trying to get housing that is affordable for our people to live in so that they'll be able to pay their rent and also buy groceries and medications and clothes.
Right.
I mean, it becomes a big challenge when you're living out here and you don't have electricity on. And there are some people that don't.
Right.
And so the problem is, I think we as the churches have to find a way to sustain affordable housing so that our members and community members, you have people that grow up here, go away to college and can't come back
Right.
and live in Lower Marion because of the amount of rent and taxes.
Right. Right.
So
That's true.
that's something that we really have to, in my opinion, have to work on stronger to put in place things that our people can access so that they'll be able to live out here comfortably.
And I think there's also something around that this area, this, something I call it a bubble, that we say this issue is not here. So it's somebody, it's somewhere else. So this problem isn't here. So when we've lifted up, even the statistic about free and reduced lunch and 1,000 young people, there were a lot of folks giving reasons as to how that couldn't be true. People aren't giving they're lying on their paperwork. And it's like, no, this is real. And in fact, we did some calling, to just give people baskets. And we called a family from one of the summer programs. And she's like, I would love to take your basket, but I don't have any electricity. So then I said, well, where do you live? She lived directly across the street from me.
Wow.
And so we live in these great houses. Everybody looks, but we don't know what's going on behind the door.
Right.
And so what are holistic ways that we're not stigmatizing, or it's just So even looking at the food pantries, that if you ever have an opportunity to go to Ardmore Food Pantry or Narberth Community Food Bank, there is a culture of how they even approach how they do the food pantry work. It's not here's a bag, take it. It's check off what you would like, which gives you some control. So I think to the point of affordable housing, just having access, having to make decisions. If you're a family here, and kids have certain types of desires, they want electronics, they want to be in the cool club.
21st century.
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, and it's a high price tag on that. So there is this,
Absolutely.
and if you're a senior citizen, with if you're in the if you're in the donut hole, you're so how can we help? So there's also a gentleman named Corky Sheeler. He has a program called Seniors and Sprouts. So he's been taking pallets and turning them into gardens.
Oh, wow.
And just make it very accessible that anyone from where you are, if you have a little bit of land, you can grow. And then there's another product out called now a tower garden. So it's we have one at our church. So growing these things inside, salads and cucumber, anything you could possibly want, you could grow. But making these kinds of things accessible, so people have access. So
and understanding the importance, because I think the other aspect when you talk about the financial piece is even helping people to budget in a way that they can access more as well. Because for example, we know with the fast foods out, that people very often think that the fresh foods and all that costs more than other things. And maybe on certain levels it may, but for the long term it doesn't. And so if you go on a week, so for example, and you buy you spend money getting fast food, that's usually just for the day, just for that meal and whatever, versus buying things that you can then cook, like you said, the greens and whatever, that could last 2 or 3 days, versus that. And so folks understanding that actually you can have the fresh foods, you can cook that, and that will actually last longer than what you just spent at,
coupled with the the quote unquote economic and holistic impact it has to your health.
Yes.
Right. So we're going to pay for McDonald's.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
so there's even just looking down the road, even like being a young person, like things I do now, could have an impact on me 20 years from now, if not right now, you know.
And also, one of the things that I have found, and I'm sure Reverend Carolyn has also, we have people that are so proud, you know, that we have to sometimes go in the back door to find out if there is a need, because they would never, ever let on that their family has a need. And so we try to find out how many people really are too proud to say that they have a need, and work with trying to get them into understanding it's not bad. If you have a need, let us know and we can help you. We're not here to put you down, but we're here to help you in your situation. So that's a challenge.
Right.
Reverend Carolyn, can you talk about how the coalition of people came together to work on the cafe?
Sure. So about 2 years ago, the superintendent called together a group of clergy as a part of his yearly update, and he shared around the food insecurity, that statistic around the 10 to 11% that's on free and reduced lunch. Rabbi Strauss of Mainline Reform, he had a group of members there, their social action committee, that had been looking at food insecurity from more of a global, national level, and then began looking at it locally and hit a wall. So it became, so then hearing that local statistic and wanting to impact locally, we began meeting. And then we, about early part of this year, we really said, we're gonna try to do something this summer. And so we met almost weekly, and we're, looking at the model of box lunch in a book, which certainly, phenomenal in providing almost 8 weeks at the 3 sites. But, that's reaching a certain group who can get there. So what about the other areas, the other pockets? And so then we were trying to research ways in which in Reverend Virginia intimated, because we are in this very blessed area, it also cuts us off from certain, novelties or free things. So for example, there is the federal program, the summer feeding program, which is a federal program, and if your area hits a certain percentage of free and reduced lunch, that entire census tract is eligible for free summer meals. Here in Lower Marion Township, believe it or not, that tract is Suburban Square. We don't understand why.
Right. And that was a big, what? Suburban Square? That's got to be wrong.
Makes no sense.
So that's really interesting to me, because someone self-identifies themselves as being eligible for free and reduced lunch and has to provide documentation to the school district.
Sure.
But then the other way, you're saying it goes through the census tract. So if you reside in a particular tract, the smallest section in the U.S. Census, that determines.
Well, it was the
how you
number
can get those meals.
of folks, let's say, who live in that census tract, who filled out free and reduced lunch paperwork, happen to live in that census tract.
And remember, I said you have people that are living here, that are making a certain amount of money, that qualify, but we don't know it because they're living in these wonderful, beautiful apartments. But they may be paying rent, but can't afford food.
Right.
So they have filled out the free and reduced lunch applications, and they're getting free and reduced lunch, but still are challenged when it comes to other things.
Sure. Or like the young lady who lived across the street from me.
Right.
Direct, and I'm in Suburban Square, and also we do know there possibly are, multi-generations or multiple persons living, and because of, Lower Marion being one of the best school districts in the country, people they're making a way to be here. Okay, so from there became that we went about a special exemption from the Pennsylvania Department of Education to provide meals at the Ardmore Presbyterian Church, which was right across the street from the end of the census tract. And so we did a pilot of 8 sessions, and 32% of the students who participated were on free and reduced lunch, which was much higher than we had anticipated. And so moving forward, becomes, there's a lot of technicalities, or do you go to private fundraising to be able to blanket it, to, whoever or whatever child, because we're sure there's other kids that need access to food, during the summer months, tagging on the current programming that's happening throughout the main line. How do we build coalition, so it became an organic, energy of just all these different congregations and organizations, food pantries just coming together, and we really had a united front. And so it was just very special. Like certainly the spirit was in it.
Right. Because then, once again, I'm raising questions. So I have to have answers. But we're talking about the summer. So, and there was one key point that you brought up, when we talk about health and wellness. And so, and it is very clear, statistics also will support the fact that children who are hungry or are not eating as nutritiously, as they should, it impacts their education. It impacts it impacts them in school. And once again, that's all year round. So if we're talking about, okay, so you got the free lunch, what happens to breakfast and dinner?
They provide breakfast in the schools.
Okay.
So,
you get
anyone
breakfast
that's
and
on the
lunch.
free and reduced lunch program can get breakfast.
Okay.
And of course they get lunch.
Right.
Now what happens to dinner? One of the things that has happened at Zion, when we have our Boy Scout meetings, which is every Thursday, then it's open to anyone. They don't have to be Boy Scouts. It's open to anyone. They can come and get dinner.
Wow.
Okay.
And that happened, and that's how Box Lunch in a Book came about, because one of the Boy Scouts was eating what they were serving like food was going out of style. And so it was questions, when did you have your last meal?
Right.
And he told the leader 11 o'clock. So she said 11 o'clock when? And he said 11 o'clock in the morning. And so it was asked, well, when will you have your next meal? And he said 11 o'clock. She said, you mean 11 o'clock at night? He said, no, 11 o'clock tomorrow. So from that point on, we just opened up our Cub Scout snack time, which is not snack time. It's a full meal.
Okay.
And to anyone who wants it, they can come in and get it. And you don't have to be a scout.
Okay. And there's also been the participation with Chosen 300, who which is very interesting, because even when some of the younger children have an opportunity to go and help to serve, and they get to see, so those who, that's not an issue for them, but I think it's learning to have a heart for those who might have that, issue, and to be able to see families, not just, men or whatever, but families down there with other kids. And it was like, they come back and they talk about their experience there, and understanding, when they're asking for this and this and that and the other and all the extras, that there's some children, and my thing is the children are needy, then the parents are too. So it is a family thing.
Sure.
So
And you're not necessarily homeless.
Right.
right, oh,
You could be a
absolutely,
working family.
right, like you
It's
said,
just, and to the point of like you just want a balanced meal one night too.
right, absolutely. So
And you said that was the Chosen 300?
right, the Chosen 300 program. Let you explain.
Yeah.
Virginia,
Chosen
the Brian
300 is a missionary entity that feeds millions of people. We have, they're all over Pennsylvania. There's one site at 43rd and Lancaster, and there's another site at Spring Garden
11th.
and 11th. And what they do, they minister to the people. They try to take care of all of the needs, providing food, providing education, providing helping people to get their GEDs, working with women and their presence, and even men. They have free hair and nails and haircuts for guys, to help them to, if you feel good about yourself, you know, then you present yourself differently when you go on job interviews and things like that. So our church goes down this coming week, every 5th Friday, and we minister to the congregants. And I'm saying congregants because I'm so used to congregations, but one of the things I love about Chosen 300 is when you walk in, they said, for us that are ministering, you must speak to our guests, not to these people that are coming and that need our help. No, they try to make the people feel good about themselves from the time they walk in the doors. And we are guests, and we are all here together to work together to bring about the best end for all of them. So,
And we do the 5th Monday.
Okay.
Okay. So, as our time is winding up. So, basically, then, you know, we hear about the programs that are going on. Clearly, the experience is saying that there's more that's needed. So, from the perspective of the church, what more can we do? What more can the church do to reach out to the community to have a better understanding of that need?
Well, I think one is, we look at our physical assets, you know, any piece of land that we can put a garden on it, we need to do that. Because it's there, and it's so many different dimensions to it. I think, secondly, how do we support programming in entities that are already doing this work? So how we should always have a box, donate jelly, peanut butter, you know, and being able to connect with those that need it. And I think certainly in Virginia, you know, anytime we do have meals, what is it to say, hey, it's an open door, just come in. You know,
Right.
If it's 5 people or 10, you know, I think how we can, you know.
So maybe every so often just have an open door with just food, you know, just come in and help yourself.
And also one of the things that I have learned, and the coalition is a good example of everybody coming together. We have a lot going on, but it's all over the place. And when we come together and we work together, you get the biggest impact. Because you're reaching more people because we know about it. Whereas, you know, Zion is doing her thing, Bethel is doing her thing. You know, we have to come together and work on the bigger picture.
And any one piece of advice to another, and I'll just call it a school district because we're mostly talking about Lower Merion School District, for another school district to start up something like this? She said it was the superintendent who reached out to the
but then eventually it was
it's the community
that made it, you know, and I think that's important. I think also, you know, understanding the culture and the dynamics, because it is, you know, there is a culture here. So how best do we? So what, you know, with Box Lunch at the Booking and the Summer Cafe, there was programming. Was the hook. Food, yes, was really what we wanted to get at, but it was really programming that, because no one's going to say I'm hungry. You know, so I think that's certainly important, and to be open about what the reality is. And so meeting those anecdotes, or because a lot of folks, statistics are great, but a lot, you know, that's not real people.
Clearly,
you know?
it is. And maybe having some open kind of forums where folks look at it as a safe place to just talk in general. So you know how like somebody can talk about this and that and the other as though it's someone else, but it's really them. But they're trying to, you know, if you're paying attention, you'll understand that all of these different things are an issue, and how do we begin to address it. So maybe, you know, having some type of open forum where people feel they're in a safe place enough to say, yes, this is real. Yes, there's a need, but then there are other needs that are folks of that problem that we need to address as well. And so I thank you for being our guest today, and to talk about the issue, and understanding that hopefully as folks listen to the program, that we'll know that we have more to talk about, and we have even just presenting other resources to let folks know that they exist. And so hopefully we will continue this conversation in the future, and that we want everybody to know that when it comes to issues such as this, that is very real. And if you have any ideas, please contact us so that we can all have our say. Thank you.